Were you able to copy any of the stuff that I sent you, or do you have it on screen, or?
Yeah, I have. Yep, I have the budget information. It was in the GoVende account, so I've reviewed it. So
Okay, so the top sheet is my fact sheet, which it's just a summary in addition to the executive summary. So you can see that almost really all of the increase except for $8,000 in personal services. Just to be thorough, the $8,000 in contractual services has to do with vehicle repair. I'm trying to increase that a little bit every year just because it's kind of an out of control cost. It keeps going up every year. And I asked for an increase of 5,000. And then we switched radio vendors this year, and the new radio vendor took on also, in addition to maintaining the portable radios and the mobile radios, we have an agreement where they do like a maintenance service on the portable radios, which helps to keep them in service, keeps them from not, they're about $1,500 a piece. And if they're able to clean them and look at them and so forth, it keeps us from having to, that might be it. Oh, Pam, looks like Pam's on.
Yeah, I told her that she could watch if she liked.
Oh, cool, okay. So there was a slight adjustment to the radio contract, and that's $8,000 and contractual, and then motor vehicle parts raise that a little bit for the same reason. One's mostly labor, the other one's mostly parts. So that's $11,000. That's non-personnel stuff. I'm sure you guys probably are aware by now that we have a 3-year SAFER grant, the personnel grant from FEMA, which was great. It actually, I have to be careful how I say this. It pays for 100% of their regular salary and like some of the benefits like health insurance and so forth. It doesn't pay for overtime. It doesn't pay for other things that are incidental to firefighter positions, protective gear, that kind of stuff. That's something that's still on the town, and we footed that bill, when they first came on. That is ending on March 9th. So that was already in this year, accounted for in this year's budget. So up until March 9th, we were getting support for the 4 safety firefighters, and then after that, it's on the town. So that's ending. So fiscal year 25 has no funding from the safety. That's significant. That's probably between benefits and salary, that's probably $300,000 of that, $737,637. A good chunk of the rest of that is all due to the contract that was recently negotiated. That contract started July 1st and it runs for 3 years. The number of things in that contract that affect the rest of the accounts and personal services. You got 2.5% a year, right, in a regular salary. They also negotiated an increase in their educational incentive, which is 1% a year for the 3-year duration of the contract. And they negotiated an increase in their EMT stipend, which boils down to 0.75% every 6 months. So if you add all that up, it's a pretty significant amount of money.
And the fitness stipend was new.
The fitness stipend is, yes, that was something, I believe the police department has that. I don't know much about that. In fact, to do it right, we're probably gonna have to bring somebody in to the police department to do it, because I've never done anything like that. That's a guess, that figure. I put in 45,000. I believe the police department uses $30,000 for a figure. I did speak with Chief Scory, and he said he was pretty comfortable with the police department and the $30,000. We're just gonna adjust it. It's trial and error. If they don't come anywhere near 45,000, then we'll cut it back to something that makes sense. So that's 45 there. The last 4 or 5 years at least, I've increased our regular overtime by $50,000. We actually have 5 more firefighter positions than we did back in 2021. So just before when the deputy position was created, we hired a firefighter to backfill down at the bottom level. And again, that was allegedly to save money on overtime because we have a minimum staffing. What affects overtime in the fire department is the minimum staffing level. 3 or 4 years ago, we had a 10-person minimum staffing level. I think it was 2022.
2 contracts ago.
Yeah, we negotiated it to 11, about the same time we got the SAFER grant for the 4 firefighters. At the time, I did make a statement that we could save in overtime as long as the minimum staffing wasn't increased. And that's obviously not what happened. They increased the 11-person minimum staffing. I'm not bad-mouthing the 11-person minimum staffing. I think it's necessary. That gives us a crew of 3 on our 3 major pieces of fire apparatus, engine 1, engine 2, and ladder 1. The 10th person is the shift commander or the captain who's in a car. The 11th person is a dispatcher who's a firefighter, a trained suppression firefighter. And then there's a cushion. We always tried to have a cushion of 2 firefighters per shift. And that does help with deferring some of the overtime. The major drives in overtime would be obviously the 55 people using their benefits, vacation time, personal leave, comp time, and so forth. That's always going to generate an overtime cost. We haven't had the situation recently, but we had people on military leave who were activated and outside the town for 6 months, a year, some of them longer than that. That really hasn't happened this past year. We more have like people who are out on a weekend once a month and maybe 2 weeks a year, that kind of arrangement. And I think a lot of the people that would be in a position to get called out for a deployment have probably moved on from their reserve status, and whatever the next step is in the military. We have about 50% of our department are veterans, and about 50% of them are combat veterans. So with that comes its own burden, so to speak. Probably a bad word, but we had one member who was out on PTSD. We've been plagued by long-term injuries, joint injuries, shoulder injuries. You tear your roto cuff and you're out for the better part of a year. Elbows, knees. I haven't had any ankles, but all those injuries can put you out for at least a few months, and the shoulder will put you out for a year. We had 2 or 3 of those. We had 2 retirements. Both of them had shoulder injuries, and both of them were out for the better part of a year before they retired. I'm probably leaving something out with the overtime.
I got a question on, you said that when the SAFER only paid for basically their employees and health insurance. But I see a ARPA transfer in the materials and supplies for 22,000 last year. Was that for their gear? Did they give them?
No.
Well, where did the 24,000 get used for under materials and supplies?
No, that did come in from the budget. That's like a Kevin thing, to be honest with you. I didn't even know about that till recently, to be honest with you. But that would probably pay, that would go towards either personnel or, actually at that point last year, it wouldn't have gone towards personnel. Probably would have gone towards overtime.
Well, it's all in materials and supplies, so
Yep.
it could be used in materials and supplies.
Last year when
So that's why I thought it was gear.
last year when I came back, we were we had a bad year with, apparatus maintenance. So $20,000 of that is for vehicle repair and maintenance. So the fire truck's breaking down. We had springs broken on just about every fire truck. Wear and tear on wheels. There's a whole long list of, we actually have a pretty good analysis of what the money was spent on per piece. But that money last year was,
Yeah, it's last year's money. that
yeah, it was
you're
like
working
in, I want to say in April, we got about, that sounds right, about $20,000 plus dollars. And that went into the, auto maintenance account and the auto parts account, which is the same two accounts I'm asking for money in this year.
Okay, yeah, because I saw Arthur, I said, okay, this year, I didn't know.
I have a question, before we move off the overtime topic. First of all, thank you, Chief Sullivan, for giving a thorough, explanation of that. I'm new to this subcommittee, but obviously not new to FinCom, so it's very helpful. I want to understand the part where you talked about, the minimum staffing level and the impact on overtime. So I just want to make sure I understand. So is it that in order, so you have to meet the minimum staffing, which I think you said is moved up to 11. Is it
Yes.
that the impact is that some of those firefighters might have to be compensated at the overtime out of the overtime account, given that they might have fulfilled the regular count for that week, or are all the firefighters that are under that minimum compensated out of overtime? I assume that's not the case. The latter is not the case, but I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, so we have a cushion of 2 firefighters. So we have a full group. We actually have a higher staffing than 3 per fire truck.
Okay.
And that's like a cushion. And so the first 2 are, for lack of a better term, they're freebies, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And when they
Okay.
drop below 11, that kicks in shift overtime. And
Okay.
that overtime is distributed on an equitable basis. We have a program that oversees that. And so in the budget, the overtime is broken into two categories. The
Yep.
large one is shift overtime. And that's up to, in last year's, it was 580,000. And the other one is called miscellaneous overtime. And
Yes.
that's for overtime that doesn't involve like working a whole shift or having the staffing level necessarily drop below 11.
Okay.
For instance, storms, when we send an engine out of town for mutual aid, we try to hire back a crew to keep us at 2 engines and a ladder in town. It could be a large brush fire, another kind of event like the 4th of July, for instance, where we want to have a 3rd engine in service. And we typically put a 3rd engine in service on the 4th of July over on the west side. Things like that. And it could be training, some forms of training where we're contractually obligated to send them to training. And because it's stipulated in the contract for a particular class, we may have to pay them overtime. That would come out of miscellaneous overtime.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I was going to ask about the distinction between the miscellaneous versus the normal overtime. So thank you. That answers that question. So I think I'm all set on this point. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Hey, you guys have any questions? Anyway,
No, the biggest thing maybe is the kicker with the safer and, what the breakdown is for, the contract, so I can understand it to write it up. It's just-
so, yeah, so
So, but I get no problem with,
in terms of the contract, so everybody gets a 2.5% raise for each year of the 3-year contract. The people that have an education, which is probably at least half of them that have a college education, it might be even closer to 2/3.
Yep.
No, so they were getting like 5%, a 5% increase in their base pay for having an associate, a 10% in their base pay for having a bachelor's, 15% for having a master's. What the contract does is it moves it up 1% during each year of the 3-year contract. So in other words, this year, which is the first year of the contract, fiscal year 24, it's 6, 11, 16 instead of 5, 10, and 15. Once July 1st starts, it's the second year of the contract. It's going to go to 7, 12, and 17%. And then the last year would move up 1% more per degree. They don't get anything for having a partial degree. Anybody who was on the department when that was negotiated is gone now, so that's not in. You have to actually earn a associates to get the stipend.
But who come up with the language as to what degree qualifies? Because it's basically, you could have anything.
No, there's strict language in the contract.
Because I thought it was just for firefighting sciences, and it's not. You could,
Yeah, I want to say there's like 12, if you're looking at that, what I think you're looking at, it looks like there's about 12.
it says engineering and stuff like that. It says, you don't need a civil engineer to be a fireman, you know?
I think if you break it down, I think almost all of them come under either business administration or fire science. There may be a couple outliers.
And you have to have at least one, like, say you come in with a business degree and, I don't even know if that's on there. I don't think it is. It's a poor example. Engineering. So you come in with a 4-year engineering degree, but you don't have, anything else in fire science. You don't get paid that stipend. Like you'd have to go back to North Shore and get an associate's in, fire science in order for that stipend to kick in. So just walking in the door, like we have a couple of newer guys that walked in the door and they came down and asked me about the educational stuff. You're gonna have to go back to school and get an associate's. And then at that point, you would get the stipend.
But only as an associate, even if you had a master's in
No,
business, something else that wasn't
The
qualified.
core requirements are usually all the same for all the degrees. You have to go back and get the fire science credits. Absolutely, all of them. Usually it's at least 10 to 12.
but to answer your question exactly,
Yeah.
they would get paid for the bachelor's if they got an associate's.
I mean, it's. Okay, I'm just.
Can you hear me okay? I just want to make sure.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, I can hear everything. Yes, thank you.
Okay. The rest of, so that would explain the increase in educational incentive. And also, we had additional department members earn that benefit. In other words, they weren't getting paid anything for education and they got a associates, and that's a 5% bump in their pay. EMT stipends increased pretty significantly. And again, that's because that's a pretty significant increase in their stipend. They pushed pretty hard for that in negotiations. We're fresh out of COVID and we did, the department did a lot during COVID, so that's where they were coming from. They pushed hard for that and that's what they got. There's virtually no change in the commercial driver's license, which baffles the mind because we offered that to them. And nobody's taking, that's an automatic, all you have to do is take the class and pass it. And it's like a 1% raise. I was kind of hoping, considering the size of the trucks that they're driving around, they might pounce on that. And they really did. There's 4 department members that take advantage of that. And most of them aren't even driving, they're officers.
So you can drive no matter what?
Yes,
Yeah, the firefighters are exempt.
the state law exempts emergency first responders
From
from,
having commercial.
yeah.
Yeah, they,
We could have a separate conversation. I
ran it extensively, let's put it there.
mean, there's a lot of driver training that goes on, especially the ladder truck. I mean, that's like not driving a pickup truck, it is a lot to it.
Especially now that it's only one end. When you had it on the other end.
Yeah,
That was.
It's just as long.
I missed that. We talked about trying to get a tiller back and at the time,
More maneuverable.
we only had 2 people on the ladder truck and I didn't feel comfortable with just having a crew of 2 and not having somebody watching the front, the passenger side up front, and, but yeah, I mean, they're very maneuverable. They're a little bit more expensive naturally, but
I see that you've got an engine again in. Is it a pumper this time or what are we thinking of for an engine?
well, there are a couple things about the fire truck industry. COVID and the transportation situation that went along with it, absolutely killed fire truck manufacturers. The price of steel went way up. The delivery dates went way up. I asked this year, I was obviously very skeptical about whether or not the town was gonna give me $1 million for a fire truck, but it's my job to ask for it. And, if the town decides that they're not gonna do it, then, so be it. But I'm gonna put in for a fire truck every year until I get one.
I
Because,
understand that, but what I'm thinking of is with the increase in, let's call it heights of the new apartments that are coming in,
yep,
are we looking at maybe a snorkel truck a boom truck that you can go up a lot quicker and not have to climb the ladder, I'm saying,
yeah, well,
as the next piece of equipment?
the sure, it's a very good question. Right now, we run two front line engines to 1,250 gallon per minute pumpers. We have a 100-foot aerial, okay? When we spec'd out the new aerial, it has a pre-piped waterway, so we don't have to like run a line up the ladder anymore, which was an inherently unsafe operation, especially in the winter. So I can live with the ladder truck, if we're gonna continue to build really tall buildings like are popping up all the time. I might consider a tower ladder, but they're not as maneuverable as some of the aerial ladder trucks. And on the narrow streets and stuff, I'm not sure if they'll make all the narrow streets that we have in town.
Well, I'm just concerned with the apartments.
Yeah.
Be able to get up and
Buckets from the end.
Yeah.
to get to, like the Hopkins Street, you're never gonna get to the 128 side without something out that way.
And we use the building, in terms of rescuing people, we use the interior building systems to do that. We have stairwells, they have standpipes in them with hose connections. So the actual aerial is probably gonna be more likely to be used in actual firefighting, flowing water, putting a ladder pipe up, kind of like what we did with the church. And I mean, I'm comfortable with the type and number of apparatus that we have right now. Ideally, we should be replacing a fire truck every 5 years. And then hang on to them from maybe 15 at the most frontline service, and then up to 5 after that for what we call a ready reserve, which is a fully loaded and equipped pumper. Because the new generation of fire trucks has all kinds of emissions and a lot more electronics than the older style pumpers. And frankly, it doesn't take much to put one of them out of service. And if it goes out of service, I want them to be able to jump on the reserve piece in each fire station, each of our 2 stations. I want them to be able to just move over to the other truck and take it. If it, God forbid, won't start, we spend a lot of money maintaining them so that doesn't happen, but you never know. And that includes the ladder truck, which would run about the same time span. The trouble is that the cost of fire trucks went way up. We spent around $700,000 for the last fire truck in 2021. And the price is about $1,100,000 right now. Also, the delivery date, which used to be a little over a year, is now over 1,100 days. If you do the math, that's a little over 3 years. That's kind of ridiculous. And I've been asking about other manufacturers. All of our fire trucks happen to be Seagraves. Yes, they're more money, but they also have a lot of stainless steel in them. So to make a long story short, when you go and look at one of our fire trucks, it's not rotting from the outside. I mean, they start to fail mechanically. Maybe the wiring will go on them, or the booster tank that holds the water might fail. Although all those are plastic now, fiberglass. But they don't last as long, and they cost more money. And we have 4 pumpers. We have a 2000, a 2006. We have a 2013 ladder truck, which is already more than 10 years old. And then we have a 2017 and a 2021. So we should be trying to replace the oldest one because that's 26 years old. And so far, it's doing well. If it starts to be cost prohibitive to keep it, then I'll get rid of it. But I kind of like having the two spares, one in each station. That works out really well if something really bad goes on.
Well, I'm also looking at if you potential to a third station. Having the backups there is gonna take some of the curse off of opening another station. That's why I'm always looking at where's your third
But
aerial?
they couldn't run as a frontline pump, those backups.
No, they wouldn't, but you always have.
You have them to roll.
You got your four that you can roll to make one and to open a new station that you wouldn't
Yeah. If,
wouldn't be in a crunch other than siting a building and getting the building going and more people, obviously.
I mean, our runs have been creeping up. This is my 16th year as chief. When I started, we had 2,700 runs a year. We're up 4,300 and change right now. And it's going up every year. We're kind of, we just went through an adjustment where we went from just under 4,000 to somewhere between 4,300 and 4,400. That's going to adjust itself again. A big part of that was Brightview. We do probably 350 to 400 calls there a year. It's a 130 unit place, and a lot of people have a lot of problems there.
Been to my house 3 times this year for my mother.
And I always, I always tell people when they ask me about that, that it's better to have all of them or as many as you can get at one spot. Because there's elevators there, they have nice wide stairways, it's fully sprinkled, it's safer for them to live there, and it's easier for us to get them out, So we only have one of those right now, you never know. We have a smaller assisted living up in Hart's Hill, which doesn't do anywhere near that many runs. But what's gonna happen is that we constantly run 3 pieces of apparatus, the 2 engines and the ladder. The ladder's doing more duty now because it needs to. So it's going out, we do over 3,000 medical aid calls a year. So they're all kind of like, we balance out the districts a little bit to try to run them all about the same, so we're not beating up anything too bad.
But 128 kills you because you're always gonna send the ladder for a buffer.
Yeah, well, we
I mean,
have,
whether you need it or not, it's gonna be your buffer.
we run an engine and a ladder to the highway.
Yeah, I mean, that's
That's
understandable.
so what's gonna happen is that these runs are gonna continue to go up. And earlier in the week, we had, I was just sitting in my office and things go from 0 to 60 in there really quickly. And we actually got 4 medical emergency calls in 8 minutes. Literally every 2 minutes, the phone rang from the police and they were giving us another medical aid call. Well, we only run 3. So fortunately, the truck that was tied up at the first call managed to be able to free up and go to the 4th call. If that doesn't happen, we're looking at calling an engine in from another town. The COVID took a major hit on the ambulance industry, where we have a private ambulance contractor. Their ambulances are spread out kind of thin. So at least, having said that, at least now we can get a fire truck to help your mom out hopefully within 3-4 minutes. But what happens is we can get stuck there, caring for mom while we're waiting for an ambulance to come from Malden or Riviera or wherever it's coming from. You've probably seen on the news where, I think they have one in, was it Gloucester or somewhere, where a young child was actually driven in by the fire chief and a couple of EMTs from the department, and they drove all the way into Boston, to get that kid aid. And I don't think the kid's yeah.
Our average time on scene is about 15 minutes. And last 3 years, our average is approaching 30% with overlapping runs. So we're at your mom's house, we get a call to go to Dennis's house. And we're already in another run. I mean, almost 30% in the last 3 years, the average are overlapping runs, which is a big concern, especially how thin, as the chief advised, EMS is running. So it's a concern.
We did 43.25 for calls last year. So 30% of those are like back to back or simultaneous, whatever term you want to use. So eventually, if the count keeps continuing like that, I'm gonna need to do, or I'm gonna ask for one or two things. I'm gonna ask for a third station, which will probably go up towards the Montrose section. I believe the town still owns some forest on, next to Forest Glade,
Right.
right?
You'd be near my house.
Or-
The calls,
or-
yeah.
We run another piece of apparatus out of headquarters, which we could probably do that. We have the dormitories and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not gonna help with response time, but it will help us deal with more calls.
Yeah, the highway is tough. The highway and Audubon Road is a 6-minute runtime call. We average under 2 minutes, under 3 minutes almost everywhere. Department townwide, but Audubon Road, other than the command car, with 6 minutes out, any way you time it, and to get to the highway, and that's a concern.
Yeah, and you can't come down over Otis. I mean, that's, forget it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's just, you'll bottom out. It just,
Yeah.
it's not made to go south, down there. No, it's-
So that pops up on my annual report every year, the fact that the count's going up. I'm
But
sure-
what is the selectmen doing with getting Cataldo to put the second car ambulance full-time in town? So instead of leaving one on the outlays all the time, but
Multiple meetings, it's
Going
just the
back and forth.
staffing is,
Yeah, we've met a lot,
It's
we've
just-
trained more paramedics and EMTs. It's an ongoing problem. It's not like gonna go away like right away.
I mean, they are, to me, is the key, is that
Correct.
you need to release you people. They're the ones that are supposed to be taking over. I mean, you're there to get there as quick as you can, but they're supposed to be right there behind
I
you.
mean, we can do a lot. I mean, we carry a lot of equipment on the fire truck. We have defibrillators, EpiPens, Narcan. We have oxygen equipment and so forth.
Yeah, like when they came to my house at 9:30, 10 o'clock, my wife, fell on the floor, but I can't pick her up with my hips and stuff.
Yeah.
And she weighs 200 pounds. So first I called my son, he come all the way down from Haverhill. I said, can you pick her up? And he said, well, I can. Started to pick her up, but she screamed. I said, okay.
all those.
Yeah.
So I called down, in your private line. I said, hey, don't send the horns and the whistles.
Yeah.
There's nothing an emergency.
Yeah, well, that's what we have.
Get in, get
We do a
here.
lot of them, yes, quite a few. And
Yeah.
again, we
So-
arrive first most of the time.
It's an issue.
And then I said, I don't need, Cadaldo. I mean, she's not going anywhere. Once you pick her up, she can get to bed.
The lift assist, we call it,
And then Cataldo shows up. I said, buddy.
because we were probably somewhere else. They have.
So, yeah, so I'm not, when I start to talk about a third station or putting another piece of fire apparatus on, it's not like a panic thing. But like I said, I'm not doing my job if I'm not pointing out the fact that we're not heading in the right direction,
Well, that's what I'm saying is if you get two stations now, I think the Cataldo's contract should be one ambulance at each station. Like, at Stoneham, you see them parked at the station, not over here on,
Yeah, they operate out of
Yeah.
that station. They have
Yeah.
quarters there.
They're actually
Yeah.
building they're doing an outfit on a piece of property on Water Street.
I know that, but
Across from the shelter.
But that doesn't get them to Greenwood, that's why I'm saying, and if you go to the third station, should you automatically want a third ambulance at the third station? I don't care what you do with your satellite guy that back in, but,
To be fair to Cataldo too, all the rest of them having the same problem.
oh, I don't doubt it. It's just,
Action and Armstrong and.
but if it's not in the contract to start with, we want two in town.
Right.
Yeah,
not-
actually, it is in their contract.
It is. They can't staff it. And if we increase it to just the way the industry is now, I mean, they can't do it. I know, it's a bad answer.
Hmm.
They can't staff it.
We have a good relationship with Cataldo and definitely meet with them regularly. Palm Walsh sits in on those meetings. Steve sat in on some of the meetings. And they have taken steps that are moving them in the right direction. But there's still an issue. There's still a shortage of ambulances. They do mutual aid with each other with, action and, I mean, we're doing the best we can, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
You know, well, when every time I see Cadell, he knocks out action and he's over in Stoneham down there, so he's on the line up here.
Right.
Where before he was on the line in Saugus, you know, because he's still got his main plant down there. So I mean, it's just,
We call them out on it all the time. Our EMS director, Lieutenant Gary Hill, he has their response times. Anything's out of line, he's on the phone with them. You know, we try to stay really on top of them. They're the biggest and the best around. And I hate to say that, but they are. They have the most resources by far. One of the smaller companies, unless you dedicated them to Wakefield, which they couldn't do, it's almost impossible. Those smaller companies can't really do that. It's just
And any
a
of
good
the-
answer to that.
well, the big ones are buying out the little ones anyway.
That's right.
Brewster's buying out and
Yep.
coming to the North Shore now, so I mean, that's where you're gonna see it, but I'm more concerned with that for the backup response than I am for you guys getting there. One way or the other with your minimum manning, you're gonna get there other than your overlaps.
Yeah,
You know, it's just that you can't do anything about that, but you're gonna get there.
Which at 30% is now concerning. That's, you know, out of 10 runs, that's every 3 runs. That's an overlap. And, you know, Chief laughs at me, but the city of Wakefield is being staffed with the town fire department. We do a hell of a job, but it's growing. It's big. I mean, I spend, you know, 70% of my time in the new construction buildings along with Captain Shinny. On top of trying to administer the department with the chief, it's, I feel like I'm a general contractor, to be quite honest with you. I mean, you know, they're everywhere and we're out there constantly. And with the 2 schools, you know, it's a big undertaking. It's growing.
No, and
And now they want to put, you know, with the new laws they want to vote on, okay, you want to put more properties on postage stamps and you're turning it into Cambridge. Because when we have buildings on small pieces of property, it creates exposure problems. For fires, it might be good in one sense, but for the fire department, it's not great. You're right on top of someone. Fire is going to communicate to those buildings. There's just,
well, that's why.
it's another issue.
Another reason I said the snorkel, whatever you call it, with the.
A tower ladder, you know, would have to be entertained, but it's not as maneuverable as the chief says. But we didn't get a tower the last time around because neighboring communities have. So we're able to utilize Linfield for us to truck company and other.
yeah, actually, we do have access to.
But it will be, you know, entertained because it's safer to operate off of but it's not going to get you any further out.
No,
You know,
other than I think see it in the winter that you can just
yeah.
aim it from down below, control it remotely, so you're not putting a firefighter up there.
We can do that with ours, but
Yeah, they
that's the
have,
water monster. They
Looks like
call
a
it.
video game.
You can try to take us, you know, strip of stores from the ground with those towers, just 1,500 gallons a minute.
I just want to make sure that you've seen the rest of these accounts and that, you know, do you have any questions about any of them or?
No, the biggest thing is the only driver here is labor, and that's why I was interested in the contract is to.
I can, we have like.
Where the big kickers were.
We don't have the whole, I haven't gotten a copy of the entire one yet. I can give you a copy of what they gave us so we can administer,
Yeah,
you know, that's not.
I can send it to you.
yeah.
And it's in here under EMS and the raises. There's not a lot more in there.
And the only thing that isn't settled is your clerk. Well, your secretary. She's not, she's.
Yeah, she did
they
not
haven't
get a
settled yet.
promotion or anything. She just hasn't negotiated her contract.
Who, by the way, is outstanding. She came over when Ann Boudreau retired. Pam is a fantastic addition.
We've been extremely
Fantastic.
fortunate with administrative assistants.
So that's good to hear. It's just, that's the only open end
Right.
in the contract, like
Yeah.
your budget is
Clever.
So
clerical, which
There'll be an
is
adjustment.
everybody, you know,
Kevin already knows about.
yeah. So everybody's aware of that.
Do you have any openings you're trying to fill?
We just had, you know, my stock answer was gonna be no, and it has been no. It has been no for like the last year. But unfortunately, somebody put their papers in yesterday, so that's gonna launch a whole flurry of activity. We'll end up hiring a firefighter,
Right, and moving up, everybody.
promote somebody to lieutenant, yeah.
Is it fairly easy to hire? I mean, I know I sit on the police's subcommittee and they have a hard time finding people.
Well, you have to find someone first, and that's a process. I think the police department has a harder time than we do, so they have more hoops they have to jump through. But we deal with civil service, so we hire a civil service list. by the time we pick somebody, and we get them through all the tests and they jump through all the hoops and they go to the fire academy for 9 weeks or 10 weeks. And they graduate and we get them back here and we get them indoctrinated. It can be close to a year before we get somebody. So that's gonna affect the overtime right there. There's gonna be one group that's light.
We have a vacancy on one group, so it's gotta be filled.
So someone has to step up to.
You know, and if someone was to get injured and we drop down to the minimum on one group, we transfer people. So that we, alleviate the overtime. We try to balance the groups up. You can only do so much though.
I mean, we had a lot of lieutenants that were hurt this year, the last 12 months. And, you can't predict any of this, but we did as much as we could to save money by appointing, temporary lieutenants. You know, so at least they weren't hiring lieutenants overtime. It would bounce down to firefighter overtime, but it's, we did that. This is the most I've ever done in the last 12 months. I bet you I did 6 or 8 temporary lieutenant, appointments. So that's what we have. I mean, it is what it is. I try to be as transparent as I can.
Yeah, that was, the biggest thing I see is your ultimate goal is the 55 gonna be your number for a while until, let's say, another station comes in with your growth.
Yeah, I think the fact that we went up to 55, well, and don't forget, when we go up 1 per shift, that's 4 firefighters.
Yeah,
If we build a fire station, that's 12.
Yeah.
That's 8 firefighters and 4 officers. So
That you'd have to add.
that we'd have to add to the department. Otherwise, you're stripping existing fire engines. So I'm sure we're probably not gonna get there for a while. But
no, you won't get there for a while, but you may get another 6 by saying adding 1 more engine to the mix.
Right, running out of headquarters
Yeah.
temporarily till we get to the other station down the
Right.
road.
I see that as your next bump is maybe six guys.
yeah, I mean, the cheaper alternative is add personnel to headquarters, than.
Oh, yeah, I think that's the only way you can go. You're not set up in Greenwood to add another bump.
I mean, fortunately, they built the place big enough so that we could do that. We already do that for storms and stuff. We have a blizzard or something, we put an extra engine in service.
Yeah, we could run out of headquarters without a problem.
So,
I don't see any grants.
I'm not seeing anybody being receptive to another safer grant. I certainly,
Well, I don't think you need another SAPER grant as long as you're not adding bulk people like the SAPER actually paid. It's the only way we get you up there.
Right.
Now we're paying the piper this year by now the SAPER's gone.
It was the right thing to do. We have that firefighter on the ladder truck, and that was huge. It was 15 years overdue. It just really helped, especially during COVID, but
I think a big part of the fact that we went from 10 to 11 was that safer grant. It gave the town a head start. Yes, they're paying for it now, but you know what, that's 3 whole years where they didn't have to pay for it. And
Well, I understand that, but I thought the giveaway was going to the 11 mast instead of leaving it at 10 for the minimum manning. I think that hurt us.
yeah, well, yes.
I mean, and it blindsided, I'd say, the finance committee, because we didn't expect that.
right.
It wasn't mentioned as a potential, and that really hurt, and.
Yeah, I agree.
And even with the SAPER, it hurts. But big kicker is the SAPER coming in full time now, and the town's gonna have to see 11% is what it is, and there's nothing big elsewhere other than labor, and that's why I think we gotta really explain the bumps and where it is and how many firefighters are under this. It's when you give me the backup and just give me the base pay, it doesn't show where all these people are with the kickers.
Yeah, we have everybody, the chief, I and Pam, we have every single firefighter line item, exactly what they make, what their raises are, what grade they're at. education, absolutely everything. I mean, that's how the chief comes to the budget.
I understand, but to be able to say, we got 32 guys with bachelor degrees, we got, you know. this-
Oh, I have-
this doesn't,
I have a
That's what I mean, we
spreadsheet,
have.
You know,
how much it costs per member.
But one guy might be in his 15th year and he has a bachelor's degree. And he's at longevity. So he kicks up in different areas. They all, it's the most complicated budget that there is. It's not even close. It's
I mean,
just-
there's
no,
Steps
and you
and
got so many
salary
multi-
steps, there's
Yeah.
longevity steps.
Yep.
You know, so you're gonna see, I'm sure somebody in the finance committee has noticed by now, oh, this person got like a 6% raise. And it's like, well, a lot of them are new firefighters and they're moving their way up through the first 2 or 3 steps. You know, they're not gigantic steps, but they, you know, they add on to the 2.5%. And we, at the other end of the scale, like the deputy just said, we have seniority steps. You know, so when you finally make your 15 years, you get a 2% bump. You know, when you get to your 20th year, you get a 2% bump. You know,
Throw a degree in there, someone just earned after their 18th, 19th year. Okay, you went from associates to bachelors, so you might see a 6.7 raise. You know, we'll look at it, we have it lined out, you can see how firefighter Smith got his bachelor's and hit his 20th year and got the 2.5%, and it's explained.
Yeah,
We do have all that, I mean, we can provide that to anybody.
well, I may need that because
I have a work.
this is such a big jump in labor. I
There'll
think
be
we gotta,
questions.
we're gonna have to have the answers back to how we got there.
I have a work.
And what is locked in that we got nowhere to go. You
Yeah,
know?
well, I mean, I have a worksheet for EMT stipend, sorry, a spreadsheet for EMT stipend per person. I have one for education. Not that it makes any difference. I have one for CDL, the commercial driver's license. Holiday pay simply goes up because everybody's base pay is going up and, that's a straight percentage. A lot of this stuff is a straight mathematical exercise.
Mm.
You know, I sit down and do the budget and, you know, it's happened the last.
The biggest thing is being able to say, well, who are the big, you try to distribute everything, but where are the big kickers in the overtime? Who's grabbing all this overtime? You know, why is that? You know, is it because no one else wants it and this one's always available to take it? And if he's got the degrees, he's really killing it in the overtime.
The higher the grade, the more money you gotta make, so the captain's at the top of the food chain. But I think it's pretty equitable. I think, you know, we keep track of all that too, and you'll see.
Well, it's equitable, but who gets it?
Well, the people that want to
It's
take it.
equitable, but it's the same
all-
rank, yeah.
On the upper end, the overtime gets kicked in.
Yeah, there are people that don't take it at all, and there are people that do take it. It's more when the availability is, and why is there overtime? And it comes down to the minimum manning. You know, once you fall below 11, we start at 13, we go to 12, we go to 11. Once we fall below 11, we have to hire. Yesterday, I went to a second alarm in Stoneham, right next to Stop and Shop. Our engine 2 went with the lieutenant and 2 firefighters. They're gone, they're out of service. We're down an engine company. We backfill that engine company with a lieutenant and 2 firefighters at 4 hours, or as long as we're there. Well, that happens 30 or 40 times a year, probably too. So that's part of it, you know,
Yeah.
Julia, that's, you know, I mean, once we drop below that 11, however it happens, it's a sick day, 2 sick days, vacation, personal, all the allotted time that they have contractually, we have to keep it at 11.
Well, it's no different than what happened in Somerville, where they all had the blue flu. All of a sudden, the whole shit place closed down.
We monitor that, though. I spoke to that at our last meeting with the administrator and the chief and Kevin, the town accountant. It's definitely not a country club. We're on top of the sick time. We're on top, you know, you can't do anything about vacation, but we have rules, only 2 people at a time, personal days. We in this contract, we did negotiate, tighten down on the amount of people that could be out per shift to save on overtime. However, you can't do anything about sick, vacation, and personal. You know, sick time, I have all the figures right here. We're at about 4%. We have been for a number of years. The average has not really gone up or down. Anybody abuses it all, they get a phone call, they're in the office, which we don't have that problem. It's just part of the general operation of the department.
And most of the young guys use their vacation leave up, so there's no carryovers, basically, when they retire.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
Yeah, there's just a few old timers left that save their sick time.
A lot of guys take comp time as opposed to overtime too, to save the town money.
Yeah.
You know, because they have small children, they'll take it in windows. I don't want that night, give me time off, so that helps.
Did you have any questions about like what we're looking for capital? I mean, obviously you know about the fire engine. But
Yeah, I think your capital is kind of small. I mean, it's not, other than,
except for the fire engine, yeah.
and you probably won't see it anyway. It just got to put it in, and I understand that.
We're trying to replace a car.
Yep.
I try not to let them go more than 10 years. It's a fire prevention officer's car. He's in that car all the time. Well, driving around. It's a,
ATV is new. What's really the basis for that?
we have a lot of, we have a lot more details than we used to have. Private details for like, charitable organizations that have a road race around the lake.
Yeah.
And it's meant to keep the detail more accessible to the people that he's working for. So if somebody gets hurt, we're gonna send an engine
Right.
to help the detail. But it'd be nice if the detail, was a little closer and we could be able to move around. Or if somebody sprains their ankle, something minor, we give them a ride back to the common, and something like that. Also, the bike path,
Yeah.
which hasn't opened yet, but we're heading in the right direction. I can't get a fire truck down there.
Right.
I can't get an ambulance down there. And these ATVs are built so that we can get a stretcher, across the back of them and get somebody out of there without having to carry them. Or a brake hot. We've been
brake
helping out
hot.
Saugus a lot more with brake hot. They have a drowning just about every year in there. And
The
people
brush
get
fires.
lost and fall down and get hurt and stuff. And
Everybody has one, every surrounding community, just about, I think, other than Reading. I did a pretty good write-up on most of our capital, other than what the chief did with the car and the engines, on everything that we need. The boat's 45 years old, which boat.
Oh, that-
I was gonna ask if the boat was replacing one or,
It's ridiculous. They're so expensive, but.
it's a 1980.
And then the doors, the garage doors, I don't even want to tell you, that we don't have safeties on our doors like you have at home. It's just, they come down on the apparatus. It's happened twice. It happened last Friday. It's, $12,000 to replace a garage door. For 15 grand, we need to put them all in. Collins came in, they were like, you're the only fire department that doesn't have these. I'm like, well, it's an OSHA violation. I mean, we have to have. them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why
Yeah.
they weren't spec'd out.
Yeah, but anyway, that's one thing.
Well, those are automatic.
Yeah.
It's just, like the car, I think, but it's not a problem. You're gonna get it, and that's
Yeah.
$50,000. Not gonna kill you.
We have a lot of school groups, that will come to the station, kindergarten classes and stuff. It's just a safety thing.
No, I know the ATV, but as far as those vehicles go, are there any grants for those?
We tried. I spoke with Tom Walsh. They don't tend to give you grants for those, for boats or UTVs, utility terrain vehicles. I went over to Stoneham and I spec'd it out with Chief Grafton, took a ride in it. They don't. Answer to your question is, I looked into that right away. Be a great way to go. They tend not to go, just the chief will tell you to give you boats and UTVs. The big thing is this rail to trail now. You might be able to squeeze an ambulance down, but you're gonna back it out.
Yeah, it's only an 8-foot path. You're not gonna get much of anything down it,
And there's gonna be,
And you get the guards in the front anyway to stop cars from going down it. So you're gonna have to
Use
move
it to
that.
drag hose in, drag hose out.
the construction sites right now, to get up to the Vogue up there, that's how they transport our detail firefighters every day for the blasting that went on for 3 months. It's gonna start up again incidentally soon enough. They take them up in an ATV that they happen to have they have a paramedic on scene, but that's not gonna be, the norm.
I mean, FEMA is great at getting you stuff, but it has to be stuff that they want to give you. You know what I mean? It's a lot of equipment. Training is almost a free grant application. All you have to do is fill it out. And it's like, oh, you want training? Or what kind of training? And as long as it meets one of their categories, they have like high, medium, low priority. So, we might apply for something or think about applying, like we just got an air compressor. We tried 4 years, five years in a row to get an air compressor. It wasn't old enough. you want too much money for it, you know, it just didn't meet their criteria.
Hmm.
And then finally, it crossed the threshold, oh, it's 20 years old? Oh, okay, yeah, we'll give you one now,
Yeah.
you know?
Really needed that, fill up the air tanks, I mean.
Yeah.
it's
You
breaking
know,
down.
so, I mean, they're great at giving you stuff, but it has to, they have to like, approve what you're asking for. And they're not gonna give us money for an ATV, or a boat if we were Salem, you know, and we had you know, a seaside port or something, yeah, maybe. But even then, they're probably not gonna give it to us.
We're out there quite a bit, even that traffic's increasing. Out the lake. 4th of July, the details, they're renting the boats out there.
Okay, well, I'm all set.
Yeah.
You said, are you all set? You have any questions more?
No further questions. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Greg.
so we're gonna